So, while we're still celebrating Terence Bud Crawford's win and looking back at the masterclass he displayed on Saturday against Canelo, the question does arise though. What's next for Terence Bud Crawford? He's turning 38 in 2 weeks. The man fights seemingly once every year. What is next for Terence Bud Crawford? I think there's 3 realistic options that we could see with Terence Crawford and his career. I'm going to go through them and let me know in the comments what you want to see Terence Crawford do next. But first, make sure you like and subscribe to the Never Drop podcast. But first, let's talk about these 3 different options. I'm going to rank them, go from most likely, in my opinion, of course this is all my opinion, to least likely. First, retirement. I know some people do not want to hear that word right now. They do not want to hear the word retire or retirement because of what just happened. Terence Crawford is on top of the boxing world, clearly the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world right now. He's just turning 38, right? Just defeated Canelo Alvarez, became undisputed 3 times now at 168. You're saying, why in the world would he retire? Well, it's a simple fact of why not walk off on top. For Crawford, now he's gotten his money fight. First he had the Spence fight, surely made a lot of money from that one. The Madrimov fight with Turki Al-Sheikh, I'm sure Turki paid him handsomely for that fight. Probably overpaid for, just a fight against Israel Madrimov. And now you have this huge event and fight against Canelo Alvarez. Money-wise, I don't want to pocket watch, but money-wise, Terence Crawford's good. Where do you go from here in your career? Because what are the money fights for Terence Crawford? Exactly. The money fights aren't really there because Terence Crawford said he's not going back to 154. Terence Crawford was saying in a post-fight interview, they asked him about Boots Ennis, I'm not going to 54. And it makes sense. For the dude, if he's up at 168, turning 38, he's not going to want to cut 14 pounds and go back to 154, even if it is for fights we'd want to see, whether that be Boots, Virgil Ortiz, any of the champions at 54. We'd love to see those, but for Terence Crawford, it doesn't make sense. Retirement seems the most likely. For Crawford, and he's talked about this in the past, he wants big money fights. That's why he was going after Canelo. Also believed he could beat Canelo, which obviously he proved that on Saturday. But where does he go? Because at 168, where are the money fights? One money fight that Turki Al-Sheikh did throw out there. He tweeted, "Can David Benavidez still make 168? Guess what? It's a fun fight. I'd love to see it. Not happening. Terence Crawford's not taking a fight against David Benavidez, and I don't blame him. And on that same breath, David Benavidez might not be coming back to 168. He looks good at 175 after his fight against David Morrell earlier this year. Honestly, I think that's a contender for Fight of the Year, not Fight of the Year, but a very good contender for Fight of the Year. That was a fun fight. He looked good at 75. For David Benavidez, he's not coming to 68. So it's a fun, hey, let me throw it out there if I'm Turkey. Terence Crawford's not fighting David Benavidez at 68. And at 68, okay, you went up for Canelo. Christian Mbili is one of the interim champs for one of the belts you have at 168 for your Terence Bud Crawford. You saw how Mbili fought Lester Martinez, who trains with Bomac, sparred Terence Crawford leading up to this Canelo Alvarez fight. Do you think you could stand 12 rounds with Mbili? A heavy power puncher at 168. I'm not saying Bud Crawford couldn't do it. I'm never going to doubt Bud Crawford again. But why? Why would you do it if you've already conquered the man who's reigned supreme over 168 for what feels like a decade now? Why would you do that? So for me, it's retirement. I think Terence Crawford is going to ride off into the sunset. What left do you have to prove? Everyone said you fought nobodies. You beat Spence. You beat Canelo. You can't argue with that. Five division champion, 3 times undisputed. The resume now speaks for itself. People have questions, opposition. For Terence Bud Crawford, he can say, hey, go look at my box rec. Go look at who I beat. Go look at my accomplishments. All that. For Terence Crawford, why not just ride off into the sunset? He's still going to be around boxing. The dude loves boxing, a.k.a. the big brother to Shakur Stevenson. He's going to be around boxing, but for a guy who fights once a year, he's not fighting again here in 2025. 2026, who would he fight? So for me, I think retirement is the most likely. My second point, if he's not fighting at 54, He's not staying at 68. Crawford himself said this. Why don't I just go back to 160? So if Crawford were to fight again, I think it would be at 160. The problem is, there's no real fights, money fights at 160. Of course, Crawford's the A side. He's the draw now. He doesn't have to have, another guy like Spence or another guy like Canelo bring fans and all that, because Crawford is the draw. After this huge fight on Netflix, Crawford's the draw. People are going to watch Terence Crawford. Your champions at 160 are Erislandy Lara, Carlos Adames, and Janibek. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not even going to try to butcher that one. He's a he has 2 belts at the division. What are the big fights? And 160 has been a dull division for a little while. For Crawford, hey, you know what? Screw it. Let's go 6th division champion. I'll fight one of the belt holders. Okay, another accomplishment. You just check it off for Terence Crawford, but those aren't Netflix fights. I'm not saying Terence Crawford only needs Netflix fights from now on, but man, if you're in a big event with Canelo Alvarez, I can't wait to see at the moment of this recording. There's no reports on how many people viewed it. I'm sure tens of millions of people. Are you really going to go through all of that, a 10-week training camp, all of this prep for just a champion at 160? I think for Terence Crawford, if he's going to fight at 160, he wants maybe a big name from 154 to come up to 160. Again, it won't be on the level of a Canelo Crawford or even a Spence Crawford, but it would be bigger than just fighting a champion at 160. Of course, a champion at 160 gets you another resume, gets you a belt, all these different things, but for Terence Crawford, it's the big events right now. So if he were to fight, I think it'd be at 160. I just don't know if it would be a current champion at 160 because the risk reward, even though I think it's very little risk because I would pick Terence Crawford over anybody at this point, but the reward is, okay, I get another belt, I get a nice payday. It's not going to compare to Spence or Canelo, maybe not even Madrimov. And now third, this option is something I floated out before the Canelo Crawford fight. And I've heard people, mention this, and I don't think there's an appetite for it really, but it's still a potential option, and it could clear up that question I had about big money fight. It's, well, what if you did a rematch with Canelo Alvarez? Obviously, I think that would do good money. I think you could have it on Netflix, Turkey, and all that. It wouldn't have the pageantry of the first one because of the fact Bud Crawford won that fight pretty dominantly. In my opinion, it was a masterclass. I know 2 judges had it 7-5, but I had it 8-4, potentially 9-3 if you really wanted to. There's a case for 9-3. Bud Crawford won that fight. Canelo Alvarez said, I give him everything. I just couldn't crack the code. I couldn't figure him out at all. So what's that rematch going to do? Again, I think it's a money fight. You could, build it up, a storyline. Canelo's, this is his last chance. But for Canelo Alvarez, I don't think you want to take on Bud Crawford again. I think Bud Crawford hit you with his best shots. You felt him. You hit Bud Crawford with your best shots. I don't know if Bud Crawford felt him. So for Terence Crawford, is a Canelo rematch in store? I don't think so. And I'm not mad about it because I don't really want to see it. And I don't get the sense a lot of boxing or just casual fans want to see it. I think they're happy with the way the first one went. There was no rematch clause, so it's not like we're having to see a rematch. No. I think we leave the first one where it was an uber success for boxing. We just keep it moving. But for me, again, out of my 3 things, I think that might be the last time we see Terence Crawford in the ring. I know Antonio Tarver was talking about he needs $100 million. There's no really opponents to get that $100 million. Unless maybe he wants to face Jake Paul in an exhibition or a real fight. Hey, I don't think that's a real case. So I think for Terence Crawford, I hope to see him in the ring. I want to see Terence Crawford in the ring, but as of now, I don't see why Terence Crawford would come back to boxing in a professional setting. Why not ride off into the sunset with your undefeated record, your undisputed title at 68? All these accolades and praise for Terence Crawford. I hope we see him again in the ring, but I wouldn't hold your breath. This has been the Never Drop Podcast. Make sure you like this video. Comment below what you want to see Terence Crawford do next. Do you think he'll retire or will he be back in the ring? And of course, subscribe to the Never Dropped Podcast. That's all I got for you today. Peace. I'm out.